very good, actually. Finance? Exactly.
That's all I really care about.
Mid-70s.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting back to order. And we will resume with our 10:15 item C1, a public hearing on the Gyre Mountain decision. So we will open the public hearing at 10:36, and we'll begin with the staff report.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, members of the board. Good morning. Maureen Anderson, Planning and Building Services. Today's item, a public hearing to consider request by Sierra Pacific Industries to rescind project approvals for Gyre Mountain. And that's it in a nutshell. What's before you is to sort of go in reverse of the entitlements that happened those many years ago. But better to speak to that is our outside counsel who's been with this project since its inception, Mr. Crabtree. He's here. I think that he better served that he gives a brief summary and answer any questions. I, of course, am available as well. So if the chairman allows it, I'll yield the floor to Mr. Crabtree.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's nice to be back in the boardroom. It was really a lot of fun to see so many people that I worked with being honored today. I was only 18 years shy of one of those 20 years plus. But as Maureen mentioned, we have had a request from the property owner to rescind the mountain ski resort approvals related to the Gyre Mountain resort project. And I thought it'd be helpful if I just painted a brief history of the project. It began in 2000 with an initiative which adopted mountain resort land use designation and zoning for the project site. The county then undertook a lengthy environmental review process that ultimately culminated in the approvals for the project in fall of 2007. And those approvals were certification of the EIR, approval of a tentative subdivision map, and approval of a development agreement. Those approvals were, once they were approved by the board, were promptly became the subject of litigation. And in December of 2010, the county prevailed in all respects regarding the litigation that was brought challenging the project, primarily on CEQA grounds. That decision was then appealed to the 3rd District Court of Appeal, and that appeal remains pending at this time. Unfortunately, the project has had a troubled financial past. I was adding it up this morning. There have been 4 different owners since it was approved and 3 different bankruptcies. Gyre Mountain Associates was the project proponent when it was approved. They filed for bankruptcy in January of 2008. This is a project that was approved in November 2007, so it was pretty quickly after the project was approved. Then a company by the name of Gyre Holdings acquired the property through foreclosure. They transferred their interests to a company called Gyre Management. Gyre Management's parent companies filed bankruptcy in 2009, and in August of this year, the bankruptcy court approved a proposed sale from Gyre Management to Sierra Pacific Industries, and that sale closed in September of 2013, and SPI remains the current owner of the property. In your agenda packet is a letter from Mark Emerson of Sierra Pacific Industries requesting that the approvals for the Four Seasons Mountain Resort be rescinded. And those are the 3 approvals that I mentioned to you. So what we have before you today are the documents necessary to rescind the approvals that the board made in 2007. There is a resolution, two resolutions, excuse me, rescinding both the certification of the EIR and the tentative map. The development agreement was adopted by ordinance, therefore must be rescinded by ordinance. So there is a proposed ordinance which would rescind the development agreement approval. And then the fourth document is actually a contractual document. The development agreement is a contract between the county and the developer or property owner. And so we've got a contractual agreement that will terminate the development agreement and terminate that contract. So those are what is before the board. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to address them. As has been mentioned, this has been noticed as a public hearing. And so the public should have an opportunity to comment.
Is there any questions by the staff report by any of the board members?
I just have one, Mr. Chairman. What are the tax implications of these documents as it relates to the past property taxes as well as, I guess, present property taxes? We know future property taxes would be adjusted accordingly. So we're
Mr. Egan, I hope, knows the answers to those.
You're welcome to.
Okay.
No, I'll be happy to.
Yeah, please.
With regard to the past taxes and pending appeal, it has no effect. Though there is, I believe, still an appeal pending for the 13, 14
current taxes.
which this will have no effect. That'll all be based on the circumstances that existed on January 1st of 2013, a year ago. As far as moving forward, I don't believe this action will have any effect unless it impacts the market value of the property. To the extent that it affects the market value of the property moving forward as sales occur in Prop 13 and what have you, any effect.
I've had that question asked of me. The answer I gave the individual in the question was basically what you just shared about the January 1st, 2013, basically leaving. So I just wanted to make sure I was on solid ground and understanding that.
Any other questions? Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions about this staff report? Anyone like to speak on the matter in opposition or in support? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 10:43 and bring it back to the board.
Well, Mr. Chairman, since I was the one no vote on the adoption of the development agreement, I'm very much in favor of seeing the unwinding of this particular project. So I would move that we adopt the two resolutions. And can we introduce and adopt, or just introduce and we have to vote later on?
Introduce in first reading on the ordinance.
Okay.
And then we'll bring it back at the next meeting for final adoption.
Okay, that would be part of the motion. And pending the adoption of that ordinance, would authorize the chair to sign the cancellation agreement on the development agreement.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye.
Given the introduction of the ordinance, maybe poll the vote would be appropriate.
Okay, let's do a poll vote.
Supervisor Chapman?
Aye.
Supervisor Alba?
Aye.
Supervisor Kyle?
Aye.
Supervisor Hammond?
Aye.
And Supervisor Wasson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
And thank you, Richard, for all your efforts with this. Okay.
We just wanted to clarify that we got all the required actions. One, we conducted the hearing. Two, adopted resolution 07043. Three, adopted 07044.
What, we rescinded those?
Adopt the resolution, rescind the resolution.
Okay, gotcha.
Number 4, introduced and adopted by title only the ordinance.
Just introduced.
Just introducing today, and we're bringing it back to adopt next week.
Adopt by title.
Yes.
Okay, yes, okay.
And authorize the chairman to execute the cancellation. Just wanted to make sure.
Can I just make one comment?
Sure.
13 years ago, my
Just come and
husband...
just state your name. for
Oh,
the
Judy
recorder.
Robinson, Westwood. 13 years ago, my husband Steve had this vision. He's not here today in the physical form, but he's in this room and he is smiling big, let me tell you. I want to thank you all very much.
Thank you. Alrighty, let's move on to our item P4, which is our 10:45 time certain for planning and building services on the sage grouse draft and environmental impact statement.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Good morning again. Maury Anderson, Planning and Building Services. Before you, the subject is just that, a comment letter on the Bureau of Land Management's draft in Nevada and Northeastern California sub-regional Greater Sage Grouse Land Use Plan Amendment and Draft Environmental Impact Statement. The board has had some reports from staff, as well as there was some discussion this morning. Staff, together with other agencies and people from the general public, have been meeting, and staff has been acting as a clearinghouse for those comments that were generated. They are comments that come from the Cattlemen's Association, the Coordination Council, the Fish and Game Commission, just to name some. They're summarized in the letter that was hot off the presses this morning. It's before you. That is the final letter. The comments are generally a theme on protecting our local rights and trying to protect land use that has traditionally happened in Lassen County, ranging from utility corridors to just general access to mining and everything in between, as well as recreational aspects that the potential document could impact. So unless you have questions and want to go through those comments, I think they're pretty much summarized in that document, and like I said, most comments from the other agencies or groups are incorporated by reference. So I think we did a pretty good job getting them all put together. So unless you have any questions, that's my report.
Yes, I'm very happy to see that the first bullet point you have in there talks about the effects of economic viability. I think that's very important, and we really need to stress and emphasize that. Just glancing through it, I didn't see anything about predators.
Well, believe me, it's in there. It's
Okay.
it's incorporated by reference, and if it's not in the cover letter, it's in there.
It's, I think it's the, let's see,
I thought it was in there though.
page 4, about the fourth bullet point down refers to the Nevada alternative D, and it's in that particular alternative is where the predator references are incorporated.
As well, the Cattlemen's have covered it in their letter, which is adopted by reference.
And then the last thing that I saw just briefly doing it is the CCs to Pitt River RCD. There's only one T in Pitt.
Somebody will be summarily punished, and that will be corrected.
So the deadline for the submitting the letter is the 29th.
Yeah, the
29th.
29th. Yeah,
I would
29th.
say, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we authorize the chairman to sign this letter and send in at this time, not wait until the 29th.
Okay, we have a first motion and a second under discussion.
One more thing, Maury, on the effects of the economic viability, you can tie in what Jim was kind of talked about earlier, and Larry mentioned about too, is not only the economic viability of the ranchers and cattle industry and the grazing, but also of tourism, and also of the outdoor recreationalists, et cetera, because all that's needs to be taken into account as well, and that's the thing that's really been lacking in the SNEPA and EIS and EIRs is we've all been focused on the environmental side to the economic side. We need to get back to the economic side, and that's.
Understood,
further push that.
understood. And the working group really didn't miss out on giving attention to that item.
Yeah, several of the comments point to that we incorporated by that total reference, so that had already been brought up. But it's one that we can't stop not bringing up, so I appreciate that.
Actually, this item is just for direction to staff.
I think it's, instead of waiting until the last moment to get it sent in, I'm more than satisfied
Correct.
with the status, and so I think the direction is go ahead and
Exactly.
authorize,
Yeah.
let it get sent in this week.
I don't believe we need to vote on it, so it's a direction.
Okay, understood.
Thank you.
Well, we have a motion and a second, so I think we want to have.
Drop motion to
But don't
sign.
you, I think the appropriate thing is just to rescind the motion to give direction to staff.
I would say let's vote the motion through and give it our full force.
Well, that's not what the agenda calls for, but if that's a pleasure.
Well,
of the
that's,
board.
a motion is a direction to staff.
Okay.
Very good.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, so the motion passes. Thanks. Okay. Alrighty, let's move along to item H1. This is items on our budget. We'll take that over.
I'll lead off, and we're gonna have several people make some presentations. Since the year's half gone, we thought it prudent to look at where we're at in terms of our expenditures and revenue as it relates to what we projected we'd do in September when the budget was adopted. And in a nutshell, and Julie's going to get into some detail, and some of the larger departments are going to get into detail on their specific budgets, but if I could generalize, we're largely on track with the spending plan that the board adopted. We're actually, in general fund, a little bit ahead on revenues, a little behind on expenditures. And that's just a snapshot in time, 50% through the year if you look at the revenue and expenditure. But we are on track with a couple of exceptions. The Sheriff's Department's going to talk about some unanticipated expenditures that they're facing. And Julie's going to go through a few other items. But I would just preface it by saying the spending plan that we adopted that we're on track to be in line with did assume that we were going to use some one-time revenues, and that appears to be the case at the end of the year. So with that, I think I'll let Julie go through her analysis, and if there's any questions, we can wrap it up.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman,
Thanks.
members of the board. Mr. Egan did talk about some of the things that we were going to focus on today, but we are halfway through the year. I did do a cursory review of all departments, and it does look like departments are operating within the Board of Supervisors approved budget. I did attach a few attachments just to illustrate a summary, first of all, of the changes that are being required or requested this morning from the Board of Supervisors. Also, I attached attachment B, which is where we started after the budget hearings this year. And then I attached attachment C just to, as a reminder as to what the board approved during the budget process and what we are utilizing as far as sources for the budget. Some of the ways that we put a good document together. So the budget is a sound and balanced budget, but I have a note in here that it is not unusual for the general fund to have some unspent appropriation at the end of the year, but at this point, the changes that we're going to be discussing in a little bit, I'm not recommending that we plan on that, so there are some changes that are being requested from the contingency budget that we put into the budget. That does require a 4/5 vote by the Board of Supervisors. I know the departments are here to talk about their changes that they have, so I will let them get into that, but there are, a budget's only a moment in time, and as the year goes on, there are times and things that change, and we have that now. So what I've attached is comprehensive paperwork to show what we need, and I'll let departments talk about what those are, but there are changes being requested in the probation fund, the administration department, building and planning, and the sheriff's department, and also jail physician, and we do have plenty of contingency to deal with the ones that we do need to use contingency for, and some of the other ones are just a reduction in revenue and a reduction or an adjustment to proposed expenditures. So I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have, or anyone else from the public, anybody might have, and if there isn't any for me, I will probably turn it over to
I've got a
the
couple
probation.
questions. Go ahead.
I was gonna offer it up to the probation department to come up and talk about their changes, but is there something for me?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things. The Sierra Army Depot RDA project, what's that?
The RD is a redevelopment area. Where are you referring to?
On attachment B, it's the last line item. There was no money allocated for it. I was just wondering what that was.
I think that's a budget unit that no longer.
Yeah, right, there's no expenditure, so the board, we probably could take action to delete that fund number.
Okay.
Without that, if it's there, I usually just put it there, you know, if the board hasn't approved to delete that.
Okay. And how are we doing on the PILT money?
The PILT revenue,
Yeah. Is it coming in as planned or no, or?
the federal PILT money we received
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year,
Right.
that has been fully received.
Okay.
That's different than the fish and game PILT that
Okay.
we had talked about last month at the board.
Right.
And as far as I understand from the governor's proposed budget, that is not included, the fish and game portion of PILT.
Okay.
I think, Tom, you know, to just bring you up to speed, in the past, the board, rather than spending the bill money on a prospective basis, we wait until the money actually comes in, and then it gets plugged into the next fiscal year, so we know in advance, a year in advance, that what we have to work with. So if they were to change, you know, the PILT appropriations, the law says how much we get, but how much they decide to give us will change basically from Congress to Congress, and so that's something we wait till we get the money in hand.
Yeah, I know that's a floating figure, and I
Yeah.
just was wondering if they had fully paid that, or
The
it was out there to be received, or,
The last 2 years, we've gotten it ahead of time, so it's been really easy to predict. So hopefully that'll stay the
And
same
they've actually
case.
given us an excess of what.
Right, yeah.
Base allocation.
I knew they
So
did
we've
that.
actually up the, we're not getting 100% money, we're getting an excess of that. In some years past, but it's been many years ago, they were only giving us like maybe 40 cents on the dollar. You know, then it got to be 60 cents on the dollar, and so the fact that they gave it to us up front and more than what the base allocation is a good thing.
So how do you project that money in revenue? I mean, because it seems to, you can't.
You can't.
Yeah.
Basically, they send us a letter, a notification saying this is what you're gonna get.
Okay.
And that's why we,
counted on.
and
That's,
Yeah.
that's what I was getting at.
and that's the
Yeah.
main reason why we delayed it, so we know we have
Right.
a bird in hand that way.
Okay.
Before we bring the departments up, Karen spent quite a bit of time last week doing some analysis on cash flow, and I think she has a few
I
comments.
had a quick question for Julie. Hi, thanks for this. So the unspent appropriations, the 370,000 you listed there, so the 15,000 is associated with the groundwater, the money we're gonna use out of the unspent. 15 for that and 85 to the sheriff, leaving the 270,000 unspent appropriations.
What the unspent, the paragraph in the memo that talks about what we can, it's likely that with all the general fund departments, they may not spend all of their office supplies, and usually that's about 2%. We could adjust those adjustments
Yeah.
because we're projecting to have zero fund balance at the end of the year. We could project to not adjust from contingency and make that assumption, but I'd rather, since we have a $400,000 contingency budget line, look to that right now. So what that means is that will reduce the contingency that's available for the board to make 4/5 vote changes between now and June 30th, down to about $170,000. But it's likely that we will end up with something, but that's more of a gamble, so I prefer, staff is recommending that we go ahead and use the contingency budget right now, which is in the general fund.
Yeah, well, thanks, yeah, my question, just on these figures here, my question is basically this, so the 100,000 for the jail, position budget, so it says transfer from public health realignment fund, so that's not gonna, our balances, our unspent balances still remain the same? Is that just because it's gonna be funded out of their budget, not have any effect on our unspent
The
appropriations?
jail physician is an allowable cost to be reimbursed from public health realignment, and typically that is Board of Supervisors' discretionary choice to fund jail physician with public health realignment dollars. So the jail physician now, based on some of their prescription needs some additional appropriation to be able to pay for those prescriptions and labs and medical costs. So that is, the transfer is coming from public health realignment, so that is no impact to the county general fund.
Okay, that's what my question was. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment. I want to compliment staff on tracking this budget. Seems like you're doing a heck of a job.
How much money is in the public health realignment account that this 100,000 is being drawn from? What is roughly our?
Well,
we-
it will have to come from public health realignment fund balance, because we were using fund balance just to balance the budget. We got an increase in revenue of 190,000, so that's not gonna offset the 100,000
And
that's
when
going.
okay, this is new money coming from new money coming into the realignment
Right.
account.
We had hoped to not spend so much of realignment fund balance, but now we're going to be because of that, yeah.
Okay, thanks. You said you were gonna turn it over to,
Karen? Oh. Switcheroo.
Surprise.
It's a moving target.
Included in your packet are some analysis that I prepared. First, regarding cash flow, that's the colorful one. This is the cash flow of county operating funds, which include Fund 100 through Fund 185. Including that is public safety, health and social services, the road department, so it's more of a global view. I'm presenting this information mainly for discussion, so you get a feel for how our cash flow, what it looks like for the last 4 years, 5 years actually, and where we've been and where we're going. So you can see from the graph that we are ending each fiscal year with a little bit fewer funds in the county treasury. In fiscal year 10-11, there was a significant cash balance, and that was largely due to the federal stimulus dollars. Since then, we've spent those dollars that was used on road projects and welfare assistance, aid to clients. Another significant change was the funding of OPEB, our other post-employment benefits. We talked about that last week. Approximately $4 million left the Treasury and went into that irrevocable trust for future retiree health benefits. So the next page on that same attachment is a multi-year comparison of revenues and expenditures by major object. Again, this is all the county operating funds, most of the county operating funds, Fund 100 through 185. Shows revenues by fiscal year and major object. The first one, for example, charges for services from fiscal year 9-10 through to fiscal year 12-13, which I went through that period because that was the last completed year. We do show a decline in revenue in that object, and that was mainly due to the closing of the state side of the jail, the CCF. So you can also see a trend with under intergovernment revenues for federal. The years that we received the stimulus dollars as compared to the most recent fiscal year, the significant decrease there. Current property taxes, you can see there's been a decline in property taxes received since fiscal year 9-10. I think that's on the upswing again, although the recovery is slow. The main reason for the decrease was the economy. Included in that number, the current taxes, is the VLF in lieu, or VLF swap, and that's based on the growth in assessed value. I removed operating transfers in from the revenue because that's